In a distant corner of the galaxy, where stars burned cold and planets drifted like lonely wanderers, an alien family clung to survival on a barren moon. The Zilari, Father Kale, Mother Nira, and their two children, Lyra and Tyne, were stranded after their spacecraft malfunctioned during a routine journey. Their ship, once sleek and gleaming with advanced technology, now lay broken in the gray dust of the lifeless satellite. Supplies were running low, and hope was fading fast. The Zilari were no strangers to hardship. Known for their shimmering bioluminescent skin that pulsed softly with emotion, they had always been peaceful beings. But peace had not protected them from betrayal. Years ago, Kale and Nira had served as diplomats in their home world's government, working tirelessly to bridge divides between warring factions. When tensions boiled over into conflict, however, their efforts were twisted against them. They were falsely accused of causing the collapse of a critical treaty, branded as traitors, and exiled without trial. Now, abandoned by their own people, they faced their darkest hour alone. Desperation drove them to send out distress signals across the vastness of space. These calls for help carried far and wide, reaching countless civilizations. Yet none responded. Some ignored the messages entirely, unwilling to risk involvement in what seemed like another political mess. Others dismissed the Zilari outright, believing the lies spread about their supposed treachery. The silence was deafening, a cruel reminder of how easily kindness could vanish when fear or prejudice took hold. But then, something unexpected happened. Deep within Earth's solar system, aboard humanity's first experimental faster-than-light vessel, the Solace, Commander Elena Vega sat in her chair reviewing data streams. Humanity was still new to interstellar exploration, having only recently joined the galactic community. Many older species viewed humans as naive newcomers, but Elena saw potential in their untested optimism. When the Zilari's faint signal reached her sensors, she didn't hesitate. "They're alive," Elena said aloud, leaning forward as the translated message played through the speakers. "A family. Stranded. No one else is answering them." Her crew exchanged glances. Some looked uneasy, others intrigued. Lieutenant Marcus Chen, the ship's pilot, voiced the concern on everyone's mind. "Commander, we don't know who these aliens are, or if it's even safe to approach. What if this is some kind of trap?" Elena turned to face him, her expression firm yet kind. "And what if it's not? If we do nothing, they'll die. Is that the example we want to set as a species just stepping onto the galactic stage?" Her words struck a chord. Humanity had spent centuries overcoming its own divisions, learning hard lessons about compassion and cooperation. It wasn't perfect, but it was trying. And maybe that was enough. After a brief debate, Elena convinced her superiors back on Earth to approve the mission. Within hours, the Solace was en route to the barren moon, carrying supplies, tools, and a determination to make a difference. As the ship approached its destination, the crew gazed out at the desolate landscape below. Cracks split the ground like scars, and jagged rocks jutted upward like broken teeth. In the dim light of a distant sun, the Zilari's makeshift shelters glowed faintly, their bioluminescent bodies pulsing weakly in the darkness. For the first time in days, or perhaps weeks, their distress signal fell silent. Had they given up? Or were they simply too exhausted to continue? "We're here," Elena announced, her voice steady despite the weight of uncertainty. "Let's show them that someone cares." Little did either group know, this meeting would change everything, for both the Zilari and humanity itself. The Solace descended slowly onto the barren moon, its landing thrusters kicking up clouds of gray dust. The humans aboard watched with bated breath as they prepared for their first encounter with the alien family. Commander Elena Vega stood at the helm, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and apprehension. This was humanity's chance to prove itself on the galactic stage, but it could also go horribly wrong. As the ship touched down, Kale, Nira, Lyra, and Tin emerged cautiously from their makeshift shelters. Their glowing skin flickered faintly in the dim light, betraying their nervousness. They had heard stories about humans, how young and inexperienced they were compared to other species, but seeing them in person was something else entirely. The Zilari weren't sure what to expect. Would these strangers be kind, or would they turn away like everyone else? Elena stepped out of the airlock first, flanked by Lieutenant Marcus Chen and Dr. Priya Patel, the team's xenobiologist. She raised one hand slowly, palm open, in a gesture meant to convey peace. "We're here to help," she said through the universal translator device clipped to her suit. Her voice echoed slightly as the machine processed her words into the melodic tones of the Zilari language. Kale hesitated, his body tense. He exchanged a glance with Nira, who clutched their youngest child, Tyne, close to her chest. Lyra, the older daughter, took a small step forward, her curiosity outweighing her fear. She tilted her head, studying the humans carefully. Their suits were bulky and awkward-looking, their movements stiff and unfamiliar. But there was something in Elena's eyes, a warmth that transcended species, that made her feel different. "Why?" Kale finally asked, his deep voice tinged with suspicion. "Why did you come when no one else would?" Elena lowered her hand, but kept her gaze steady. "Because no one should be left behind," she replied simply. The translator rendered her words into soft, resonant notes that seemed to hum in the air. For a moment, silence stretched between the two groups. Then, unexpectedly, Lyra reached out and touched Marcus's gloved hand. It happened so quickly that no one had time to react. As soon as her fingertips brushed against the material of his suit, Lyra gasped softly. Her empathic abilities flooded her mind with fragments of emotion. Marcus's nervousness, his determination, and most importantly, his sincerity. Tears welled up in her large, luminous eyes as she turned to her parents. "They mean it," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They really want to help us." Nara hesitated, glancing at Kale. Trust did not come easily to them, not after everything they'd endured. But Lyra's words carried weight. Her gift had never failed them before. Slowly, Kale nodded. "If you truly wish to assist us," he said to Elena, "then we accept your aid." With that fragile agreement in place, both groups began working together tentatively. The humans offered food rations and medical supplies, which the Zilari accepted gratefully. In return, the aliens shared some of their own technology, demonstrating how certain devices could purify water or generate heat using minimal energy. Communication remained clumsy at times, with the translator struggling to capture nuances of tone and meaning. Still, progress was made. Dr. Priya Patel spent hours observing the Zilari, fascinated by their biology. She noticed how their bioluminescent patterns shifted depending on their emotions: soft blues for calmness, bright greens for excitement, and dull reds for sadness or anger. When she smiled warmly at Lyra during one interaction, the girl's skin lit up with a cheerful yellow glow. It was a small moment, but it broke the ice further. Meanwhile, Marcus tried teaching Tan how to operate a handheld scanner. The boy giggled every time the device beeped, delighted by its simplicity. "You're quick," Marcus told him, earning another burst of laughter. Even Kel couldn't suppress a faint smile as he watched his son bond with the human pilot. By the end of the day, the tension had eased considerably. Though challenges lay ahead, a foundation of trust had been laid. The Zilari realized that these humans, though inexperienced, carried genuine goodwill in their hearts, and the humans discovered that kindness could bridge even the widest gaps between worlds, cultures, and species. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered to life on the barren moon. The days that followed were a delicate dance of survival and connection. The humans and the Zilari worked side by side, sharing resources and knowledge as they struggled to repair the damaged spacecraft. Despite their differences, both groups quickly realized they had much to learn from each other and much to gain. Commander Elena Vega took charge of organizing the efforts, dividing tasks among her crew while ensuring the Zilari felt included in every decision. Kale and Nira proved invaluable, explaining how their ship's systems functioned and guiding the humans through its alien design. "This panel controls energy flow," Kale said one afternoon, pointing to a glowing circuit board. His fingers moved deftly over the surface, adjusting settings with practiced ease. Lieutenant Marcus Chen watched intently, jotting notes on his tablet. "Got it," he replied, mimicking the movements as best he could. Though the technology was unlike anything humanity had ever seen, Marcus's determination shone through. Meanwhile, Dr. Priya Patel spent most of her time with Lyra and Tin. The children fascinated her, not just because of their bioluminescent skin, but also because of their resilience. Lyra, especially, seemed wise beyond her years. Her empathic abilities allowed her to sense emotions without words, making her an unexpected bridge between species. One evening, as Priya handed out protein bars, Lyra touched her arm lightly. Instantly, she felt a wave of gratitude radiating from the girl. "Thank you," Lyra whispered, her voice soft but heartfelt. Priya smiled, feeling a lump rise in her throat. It wasn't often she encountered such raw sincerity. Tin, on the other hand, was more mischievous than reflective. He loved tinkering with tools and gadgets, constantly asking questions about how things worked. "What does this button do?" he chirped one morning, holding up a small device used for analyzing soil samples. Marcus chuckled, kneeling beside him. "That's not a toy, buddy," he said gently, taking it back. "But if you're interested, I can show you something safer." Together, they built a simple contraption using spare parts, a wind-powered fan that delighted Tin endlessly. Evenings became a time for storytelling. Around a makeshift fire fueled by chemical heaters, the two groups shared tales of their worlds. Kale spoke of the lush forests and shimmering oceans of Ziller Prime, painting vivid pictures of a home now lost to them. Nira recounted happier times before their exile, her voice tinged with longing. In turn, the humans described Earth, the blue skies, vast oceans, and bustling cities. They talked about humanity's struggles, wars, pollution, inequality, but also its triumphs: art, science, exploration. At one point, Lyra asked a question that caught everyone off guard. "Why are humans so different?" She wondered aloud, her glowing skin shifting to a curious shade of lavender. "You fight each other, yet you came all this way to help us. Why?" Elena hesitated, thinking carefully before answering. "Humans aren't perfect," she admitted. "We make mistakes, hurt each other, and sometimes let fear guide us. But we also have hope that we can be better tomorrow than we are today. That's why we came, to show that even when it's hard, doing the right thing matters." Her words resonated deeply with the Scillarii. For Nira, they sparked a memory of her own ideals, long buried under pain and betrayal. She looked at Elena with newfound respect. "Perhaps your kind is wiser than we thought," she murmured. As the repairs progressed, so did the bonds between the two groups. Simple acts of kindness, sharing meals, offering encouragement, laughing over misunderstandings, began to feel natural. Yet challenges remained. Supplies dwindled faster than expected, forcing rationing. Temperatures dropped sharply at night, testing their endurance. And always, there was the looming uncertainty of whether they'd succeed in fixing the ship before it was too late. One particularly frigid evening, as everyone huddled together for warmth, Tin leaned against Marcus sleepily. "Will we go home soon?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Marcus glanced at Elena, who nodded reassuringly. "We'll get you there, kid," he promised, "no matter what." In that moment, surrounded by strangers turned friends, the Scillarii found solace in the unlikeliest of places. Humanity, still learning its place in the stars, had become their lifeline. And for the humans, the experience reinforced a powerful truth. Compassion transcended galaxies. Just as hope began to take root on the barren moon, an ominous shadow loomed over the fragile alliance between humans and Scillarii. One morning, while Lieutenant Marcus Chen was calibrating a power converter aboard the damaged alien ship, the sensors picked up something unusual, a faint but unmistakable energy signature approaching their location. "Commander," Marcus called out, his voice tense as he rushed back to the campsite, where Elena Vega stood with Dr. Priya Patel and the Zilari family. "We've got company." Elena's brow furrowed as she studied the readings on Marcus's handheld device. The signal belonged to multiple ships, fast, advanced vessels that could only belong to one faction, the Zilari government. Kel's glowing skin immediately shifted to a dull red, his body rigid with fear. Nira clutched her children closer, her bioluminescence flickering erratically. "They found us," Kale said grimly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Varnak has come." "Who is Varnak?" Elena asked sharply, her instincts kicking in. Kale hesitated, then spoke with forced calm. "He leads the council that exiled us. If he's here, it means they intend to silence us permanently." The gravity of the situation hit the humans like a tidal wave. They had known the Zilari were fugitives, but they hadn't anticipated this level of danger. Elena turned to her team, her mind racing. "How long until they arrive?" "Less than 2 hours," Marcus replied, checking the trajectory data again. "They're moving fast." Panic threatened to creep in, but Elena pushed it aside. She looked at Kale and Nira, her expression resolute. "We won't let them take you without a fight. What do we need to do?" Nira shook her head, her eyes filled with despair. "You don't understand. You can't stand against them. Their weapons are far superior to anything you have. We didn't cross the stars to abandon you now." Elena shot back firmly. Her words carried a quiet determination that silenced any protest. Turning to her crew, she began issuing orders. "Marcus, prep the Solace for emergency departure. Priya, gather all portable supplies. We may have to move quickly. Kale, tell me everything you know about their tactics." As the group scrambled into action, Lyra stepped forward, her small frame trembling but her voice steady. "We can help," she said softly. "Our ship still has some defensive systems online. Father knows how to use them." Kale nodded reluctantly, realizing there was no other choice. Together, they worked feverishly to reactivate what little remained of the Zilari vessel's defenses. Meanwhile, Elena devised a risky plan. If they couldn't outrun Varnak's fleet, they would have to hide. Using the rocky terrain to their advantage, the humans and Zilari dismantled parts of their camp and concealed evidence of their presence. The Solace was partially buried under layers of moon dust, its reflective surface dulled to blend with the surroundings. Inside the alien ship, Kale programmed automated decoy signals to mimic false movements across the moon's surface. It was a desperate gamble, but it might buy them enough time to escape detection. Or so they hoped. As the minutes ticked away, the tension grew unbearable. Tyne clung to his mother, his glowing skin dimming with fear. Even Lyra's usual calm demeanor faltered as she sensed the anxiety radiating from everyone around her. Yet amidst the chaos, moments of connection emerged. When Marcus handed Tin a small flashlight to distract him, the boy managed a weak smile. And when Priya knelt beside Lyra to reassure her, the girl reached out and touched her hand briefly, sending waves of gratitude through the human scientist. Finally, the moment arrived. A fleet of sleek, angular ships descended upon the moon, their dark hulls blotting out the distant sun. From the lead vessel emerged a transmission, a cold, commanding voice demanding surrender. "This is Varnak of the Zilari Council," the voice declared. "Hand over the traitors immediately, or face annihilation. Humans, leave this matter to us. You have no stake here." Elena clenched her fists, fury bubbling beneath her composed exterior. She glanced at Kull, who nodded silently, giving her permission to respond. Taking a deep breath, she activated the communicator. "Humans value justice," she said evenly. "And we won't abandon those who deserve it." Varnak's reply was icy. "Then you'll share their fate." As the first shots rang out, Lighting up the desolate landscape, the humans and Zilari braced themselves for what might be their final stand. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, one thing was clear: they would face it together. The first energy blasts from Varnak's fleet struck the barren moon with devastating force, sending plumes of dust and debris spiraling into the air. The humans and Zilari scrambled for cover, their hearts pounding as they realized how outmatched they were. The sleek warships hovering above them were a stark reminder of the technological gulf between humanity's fledgling efforts and the advanced might of the Zilari government. Inside the partially buried alien ship, Commander Elena Vega barked orders while trying to keep her team calm. "Marcus, get us online. We need those decoy signals now," she shouted over the chaos. Outside, the automated systems Cal had programmed began emitting false readings, creating phantom movements across the moon's surface. For a fleeting moment, it seemed to work. Varnak's ships hesitated, their weapons targeting empty craters instead of the real campsite. But the reprieve was short-lived. One of the enemy vessels swept closer, its sensors cutting through the ruse. A second barrage of fire tore through the rocky terrain, narrowly missing the concealed Solace. The ground shook violently, forcing everyone to brace themselves against the walls of their makeshift shelter. "We can't stay here," Nira cried, clutching her children tightly. Her glowing skin pulsed erratically, betraying her terror. "They'll find us." Elena turned to Kel, who stood grim-faced near the console. "Is there any way to disable their scanners?" she asked urgently. Kel nodded, though his expression was heavy with sacrifice. "I can overload our ship's core. It will emit an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to blind their sensors temporarily. But it means staying behind to activate it." "No," Nira protested immediately, stepping forward. "You're not doing this alone." "It's the only way," Kel replied firmly, his voice steady despite the weight of his decision. He placed a hand on her shoulder, his bioluminescent glow softening to a gentle blue. "Take the kids and go. Trust me. I'll buy you all the time you need." Before anyone could argue further, Dr. Priya Patel stepped in, her face pale but determined. "Let me help him," she said quietly. "If we both work together, we can set off the EMP faster." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Kel gave a reluctant nod. "All right, but be quick." As Kel and Priya rushed to the ship's core chamber, Elena turned to the rest of the group. "Nira, take Lyra and Tin to the Solace. Marcus, you're with me. We'll hold them off as long as we can." The Zilari mother hesitated, torn between staying with her husband and protecting her children. Lyra tugged gently at her sleeve, her empathic abilities picking up on the turmoil around her. "Mother, please," she whispered. "Father will come back. We have to trust him." With tears streaming down her face, Nira finally relented. She led her children toward the hidden human vessel, her steps heavy with grief but resolute in purpose. As they disappeared into the dusty haze, Elena and Marcus prepared for what might be their final stand. Outside, the battle intensified. Varnak's fleet unleashed another wave of attacks, their weapons carving deep scars into the lifeless landscape. Elena used every trick she knew, deploying flares and jamming frequencies to confuse the enemy. Each explosion brought them closer to disaster, but also closer to freedom. Meanwhile, inside the alien ship, Kel and Priya worked frantically to rig the EMP. Sweat dripped from their brows as they connected wires and adjusted settings under intense pressure. "Almost done," Kel muttered, his hands moving swiftly over the controls. Just as he finished, a massive blast rocked the ship, throwing them both to the floor. Priya groaned, struggling to rise. "Go," she urged Kel. "Get out of here. I'll finish it." Kel hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you," he said simply before sprinting toward the exit. Behind him, Priya activated the countdown sequence, sealing her fate. Seconds later, a blinding flash engulfed the area. The EMP surged outward, disabling Varnak's sensors and plunging the battlefield into temporary darkness. In that critical moment, the Solace roared to life, breaking free from its hiding place and streaking toward safety. As the survivors escaped into the void of space, none dared look back. They had won a narrow victory, but at a cost none would soon forget. The Solace hurtled through the darkness of space, its engines straining as it carried the remnants of the Zilari family and the human crew away from the barren moon. Inside the ship, the mood was somber but resolute. The survivors had barely escaped with their lives, thanks to Cal's sacrifice and Dr. Priya Patel's bravery. Yet even as they fled, questions lingered in the air. Questions about why Varnak had pursued them so ruthlessly and what secrets lay buried beneath the lies that condemned the Zilari. Nira sat quietly in a corner of the main cabin, her glowing skin dimmed to a faint blue-green hue. Her children clung to her sides, wide-eyed and silent. Lyra occasionally glanced up at her mother, sensing the storm of emotion swirling within her, but she didn't speak. For now, there were no words strong enough to bridge the chasm of grief left by Cal's absence. Commander Elena Vega paced the length of the cabin, her mind racing. She knew they couldn't run forever. Varnak's fleet would regroup and come after them again. But more than that, she felt an unshakable conviction. They needed answers. Why had the Zilari government gone to such lengths to silence one family? What truth were they hiding? Nira, Elena said finally, kneeling beside the grieving mother, we need to know everything. Whatever it is they're afraid of. It might be our only chance to fight back. Nira looked up, her eyes hollow but sharp. After a moment, she nodded slowly. You deserve to know, she murmured, but it will not be easy to hear. With halting words, Nira began unraveling the tangled web of deceit that had led to their exile. Years ago, when tensions between rival factions on Zillar Prime threatened to boil over into civil war, Kale and Nira had been tasked with brokering peace. They worked tirelessly, drafting treaties and negotiating compromises. Just as success seemed within reach, disaster struck. A key diplomatic meeting ended in betrayal, with accusations flying that the Zilari representatives had leaked classified information to their enemies. It wasn't us, Nira insisted, her voice trembling with anger and sorrow. Someone else planted false evidence in our files. We were framed, but by whom, we never discovered. By the time we realized what was happening, it was too late. The council branded us traitors and cast us out without trial. Elena listened intently, her jaw tightening as pieces fell into place. And Varnak? She asked. He orchestrated it all. Nira replied bitterly. He wanted chaos, to weaken the council and seize power for himself. Our disgrace served his purpose perfectly. As Nira spoke, Lieutenant Marcus Chen accessed the data cache salvaged from the damaged alien ship. Among the fragmented files, he found something shocking. Encrypted logs detailing communications between high-ranking officials and shadowy operatives. With Dr. Priya Patel's help, they decrypted the files, revealing damning evidence of corruption and conspiracy. It was proof, not just of Kale and Nira's innocence, but of Varnak's treachery. This changes everything, Elena said, holding up the recovered data on a tablet. Her voice carried both triumph and resolve. If we expose this to the galaxy, it could turn the tide against him. But getting the truth out wouldn't be easy. Varnak's influence extended far beyond Solar Prime, and broadcasting the evidence risked drawing even more enemies. Still, Elena refused to back down. Humanity had taken a stand once already, for strangers left to die, and she believed they could do it again. Lyra watched silently as the humans and her mother planned their next move. Though young, she understood the stakes. Her father's sacrifice hadn't been in vain if it meant clearing their names and stopping Varnak. As the Solace sped toward neutral territory, hope flickered anew among its passengers. Together, they vowed to bring justice to the stars, even if it meant facing impossible odds. For the first time since their nightmare began, the Zilari family dared to dream of redemption, and humanity stood ready to help them make it a reality. The Solace emerged from its first hyperspace jump into a vast, glittering expanse of stars. Commander Elena Vega immediately ordered the crew to scan for any signs of pursuit. They couldn't afford to let their guard down, not when Varnok's fleet was likely already recalibrating their sensors and plotting their next move. Anything? Elena asked sharply, her eyes fixed on the monitors. Marcus Chen shook his head as he analyzed the data streaming in. Not yet, but we're not safe. They'll find us sooner or later. Elena clenched her fists, frustration bubbling beneath her calm exterior. Then we need to stay one step ahead. Keep jumping every few minutes. Don't give them time to lock onto our position. The plan was risky. Each hyperspace jump drained precious energy reserves, and the experimental engines of the Solace weren't designed for such constant strain. But they had no choice. Survival depended on staying unpredictable. Inside the cabin, Nira sat with her children, trying to keep them calm despite the tension. Lyra's glowing skin flickered between anxious shades of dull red and pale green, while Tin clung tightly to his mother, his wide eyes reflecting fear. "Will they catch us, Mother?" Tin whispered, his voice trembling. Nira forced a reassuring smile, though her own emotions betrayed her through faint pulses of bioluminescence. "We have good people helping us," she said softly, glancing toward Elena and the human crew. "They won't let that happen." As the ship prepared for another jump, Lyra approached Elena hesitantly. Her empathic abilities had grown stronger under stress, allowing her to sense the commander's determination and her worry. "You're scared too," Lyra said quietly, her words carrying an unspoken understanding. Elena knelt down, meeting the girl's gaze. "Yes, I am," she admitted, "but being scared doesn't mean giving up. Sometimes it means fighting harder." Lyra nodded, her glow softening to a gentle yellow. She reached out and touched Elena's hand briefly, sending waves of gratitude and courage through her. For a moment, Elena felt lighter, as if the weight of leadership had been shared. Hours passed in a blur of hyperspace jumps and frantic calculations. Every time the Solace re-entered normal space, Marcus scanned for enemy ships, holding his breath until the coast seemed clear. But just as they began to think they might outrun Varnok's fleet, disaster struck. A massive explosion rocked the ship as an unseen blast grazed its hull. Alarms blared, and everyone scrambled to stabilize the vessel. "They found us," Marcus shouted, frantically working the controls. 3 ships closing in fast. Elena sprang into action. "Activate defensive countermeasures. We can't let them board us." Tin's panicked cry echoed through the cabin as another shot grazed the ship, shaking its frame violently. Nira pulled her son close, whispering soothing words even as her own body trembled with fear. Meanwhile, Lyra focused intently on the battle outside, using her empathic powers to anticipate the enemy's movements. "They're aiming for the engines," Lyra called out suddenly, her voice sharp with urgency. "They want to disable us." Elena turned to Marcus. "Can you fake engine failure? Make them think they've hit us." Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "I can try, but it'll leave us vulnerable if they get too close." "Do it," Elena ordered, "and prepare for evasive maneuvers." With quick adjustments, Marcus triggered a controlled power surge that mimicked catastrophic damage. The Solace went dark, drifting silently as Varnok's ships circled cautiously. Inside, the crew held their breath, waiting for the enemy to make their move. When 2 of the warships moved in closer to investigate, Elena seized the opportunity. "Now," she barked. Marcus slammed his hands onto the controls, reigniting the engines at full thrust. The sudden burst of speed caught the attackers off guard, creating enough chaos for the Solace to slip away again. Cheers erupted among the humans, but the victory was short-lived. Everyone knew they couldn't keep this up forever. Later, as the adrenaline faded, Elena gathered the group to strategize. "We need allies," she said firmly. "Someone who can help us expose Varnok's crimes before he destroys us." Naira looked thoughtful. There is one place, the United Sentient Council. It's a neutral coalition of civilizations. If we reach them, we might stand a chance. Alina nodded. Then that's where we're headed. Hold on tight. We're not done yet. As the ship continued its perilous journey, bonds between humans and Zilari deepened further. Together, they faced each new challenge with ingenuity and resilience. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, hope burned brightly aboard the Solace. The Solace finally arrived at the United Sentient Council, USC headquarters, a sprawling space station orbiting a shimmering blue gas giant. Its towering spires and glowing domes were a testament to the galaxy's most advanced civilizations working together in harmony. For the first time in days, the humans and Zilari allowed themselves a moment of cautious optimism. This was their last chance to clear the family's name, and humanity's reputation now rested on the outcome. Commander Elena Vega led the group through the station's grand corridors, flanked by Nira and her children. Lyra's bioluminescent skin glowed softly with nervous excitement, while Tyne clung tightly to his mother's hand. The USC representatives, an eclectic mix of species ranging from insectoid beings to floating orbs of light, watched curiously as they entered the council chamber. Whispers rippled through the room, some intrigued by the presence of humans, others skeptical of the Zilari fugitives. Nira stepped forward, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "I am Mira of Zillar Prime," she began, addressing the assembly, "and I bring evidence that will expose corruption within my own government." Elena handed over the decrypted logs salvaged from the damaged alien ship. A holographic display projected the damning data for all to see. Falsified documents implicating Kel and Nira, covert communications revealing Varnak's schemes, and proof of his manipulation of interstellar politics. Gasps echoed throughout the chamber as the truth unfolded before them. Varnak himself appeared moments later via hologram, his cold gaze sweeping over the room. "This is slander," he declared, his tone dripping with disdain. "These so-called traitors have been manipulating outsiders to spread lies about our noble council. Do not fall for their deception." His words sparked heated debate among the council members. Some sided with Varnak, dismissing the evidence as fabricated. Others questioned why such powerful accusations would surface if there wasn't truth behind them. Amidst the chaos, Elena rose to speak, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "Humans may be newcomers here," she said firmly, "but we came because no one else would answer this family's cry for help. We saw their suffering firsthand. We witnessed their courage and dignity. And we uncovered this conspiracy, not out of malice, but because justice demands it." Her words resonated deeply, especially when Lyra stepped forward, her small frame glowing brightly under the scrutiny of countless eyes. She held up a single artifact, a recording device salvaged from the moon. When activated, it played Kel's final message before sacrificing himself to save his family. His voice was calm yet filled with resolve. "If you hear this, know that we did nothing wrong. Tell the galaxy the truth, even if we cannot." Silence fell over the chamber as the recording ended. Tears welled up in Nira's eyes, but she stood tall, her bioluminescence pulsing with quiet strength. One by one, council members began to shift their stance. Even those initially skeptical found themselves moved by the undeniable sincerity of the Zilari family, and the bravery of the humans who had risked everything to stand beside them. Varnak's composure faltered as the tide turned against him. Desperation crept into his voice. "You cannot trust these outsiders. They meddle where they do not belong." But his protests only fueled further outrage. A representative of the insectoid Orlac species spoke up sharply. "Your arrogance blinds you, Varnak. These humans acted with honor, something your actions lack entirely." By the end of the trial, the verdict was clear. The USC condemned Varnak and his regime, stripping him of power and ordering an investigation into the Zilari government. Kale and Nira's names were officially cleared, restoring their status as respected diplomats. Cheers erupted in the chamber, and for the first time in years, Nira felt a flicker of peace. As the crowd dispersed, Elena approached Nira, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It's over," she said softly. "You're free." Nira nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Because of you," she whispered. "Thank you for believing in us." The victory was bittersweet, but it marked the beginning of something greater. Humanity had proven itself not just as explorers, but as defenders of justice. And the Scifi family, once abandoned, now stood redeemed, all thanks to the compassion of strangers who refused to look away. The aftermath of the trial brought a mix of relief and sorrow for the Scifi family. Nira, Lyra, and Tin stood together on the observation deck of the USC space station, gazing out at the swirling blue gas giant below. Their glowing skin shimmered faintly in the dim light, reflecting their complex emotions: gratitude for justice served, but also deep grief for Kale, whose sacrifice had made it all possible. Nira clutched a small holographic image of her husband close to her chest. It was one of the few mementos they'd salvaged from the damaged ship, and she traced its edges with trembling fingers. "He gave everything for us," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "I wish he could see this moment." Lyra placed a gentle hand on her mother's arm, her empathic abilities picking up on the waves of sadness radiating from her. "Father is proud of us," she said softly, her own voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "He knew we would make it through." Tin, still too young to fully grasp the magnitude of what had happened, simply leaned into his mother's side, seeking comfort in her warmth. For now, that was enough. Commander Elena Vega joined them after finalizing arrangements with the USC representatives. She carried news that would shape the family's future and humanity's role in the galaxy. "The Council has offered you protection," she told Nira. "You'll be reinstated as diplomats, and your children will have access to education and resources here at the station." Nira nodded gratefully, though her expression remained thoughtful. "What about Varnuk?" she asked cautiously. "He's been detained pending further investigation," Elena replied. "His followers are scattered, and without him leading them, they'd pose little threat. The truth has weakened his influence significantly." A weight seemed to lift from Nira's shoulders at those words. Still, she hesitated before speaking again. "We cannot return to Zillar Prime. Not yet. Too much pain remains there, but we want to stay together. As a family." Elena smiled warmly. "Then you'll have our support. Humanity believes in second chances and fresh starts." Back aboard the Solace, preparations were underway for the journey home. The crew worked tirelessly to repair the damage sustained during their daring escape from Varnuk's fleet. Lieutenant Marcus Chen joked that the ship might never fly quite the same again, but his tone carried pride rather than frustration. They had pushed the experimental vessel beyond its limits, and it had held together when it mattered most. Dr. Priya Patel, however, felt a lingering ache from her time, helping Kale rig the EMP. Though she hadn't known him long, his sacrifice weighed heavily on her heart. As she packed away her equipment, she found herself staring at a small bioluminescent crystal Lyra had given her as a token of gratitude. Its soft glow reminded her of the resilience and kindness she'd witnessed among the Scifi, and how much they had taught her about courage. Before departing, the humans and Scifi shared one final meal together aboard the Solace. Laughter mingled with quiet reflections as stories were exchanged and promises made. Lyra vowed to visit Earth someday, while Tin declared his intention to become a pilot like Marcus. Even Nira allowed herself a rare smile, touched by the bond that had formed between their two species. As the farewells drew near, Elena approached Nira one last time. "This isn't goodbye forever," she said firmly. "Humanity owes you a debt we can never fully repay. If you ever need us, we'll be there." Nira's glowing skin shifted to a warm golden hue, signaling deep gratitude. "And we owe you the same," she replied. "You reminded us that even in the darkest times, there is light, if only someone is brave enough to shine it." With heartfelt embraces and promises to stay connected, the two groups parted ways. The Zilari boarded a USC transport ship bound for a safe haven, while the Solace set course for Earth. As the vessels drifted apart, the humans aboard watched until the alien ship disappeared into the stars. For the first time, humanity returned home, not just as explorers, but as allies. And though challenges lay ahead, they carried with them the knowledge that acts of compassion could change lives, and perhaps even entire galaxies. Cal's legacy lived on in the hearts of those who survived. His family was free, his name restored, and his sacrifice honored. In the end, everyone left the Zilari family to die, except the humans. And because of that choice, hope burned brighter than ever before. The Solace re-entered Earth's atmosphere to a hero's welcome. News of their mission had spread across the planet, thanks to real-time updates sent back by the USC and humanity's growing network of interstellar communication. Crowds gathered at spaceports worldwide, waving flags and holding banners that read, "Hope beyond stars," and "Courage unites us." For the first time in history, humanity wasn't just looking outward, it was stepping forward as a force for good. Commander Elena Vega stepped off the ship alongside her crew, greeted by thunderous applause. Reporters shouted questions about the Zilari family, the trial, and what it meant for Earth's place among the stars. Elena raised a hand to quiet the crowd before speaking into the microphone. "This wasn't just our victory," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "It was a reminder that even when others turn away, we can choose to stand up, for justice, for kindness, and for each other." Her words resonated deeply, sparking conversations around the globe. Nations that had once been divided began working together more closely than ever, inspired by the example set by the Solace. Funding poured into space exploration programs, and young people everywhere dreamed of following in the footsteps of Elena and her team. Humanity's future in the galaxy suddenly felt limitless. Years passed, and the bond between humans and the Zilari only grew stronger. Mara and her children thrived under the protection of the USC, becoming advocates for marginalized beings across the galaxy. Lyra, now grown, became an ambassador renowned for her empathic abilities, which helped bridge gaps between warring factions. Tyne followed his childhood dream, enrolling in a prestigious interstellar flight academy where he excelled, often crediting Marcus Chen as his inspiration. True to their promise, the Zilari visited Earth several times over the years. Their arrival always sparked excitement, as humans marveled at their shimmering bioluminescent skin and shared stories of Cal's bravery. During one such visit, Lyra stood before a packed auditorium of students, her glow pulsing softly with pride. "Your species changed ours," she told them. "When everyone else abandoned us, you showed us that hope is not something given, it's something created." Meanwhile, back on Earth, the success of the Solace mission paved the way for unprecedented advancements. The technology salvaged from the damaged Zilari ship led to breakthroughs in energy efficiency and medical science. Humanity also adopted elements of Zilari culture, including their emphasis on empathy and cooperation. Schools began teaching lessons about the importance of standing up for those in need, using the story of the stranded alien family as a shining example. One day, decades after the original mission, Elena Vega received an unexpected message. It came from deep space, a transmission from Mira herself. Attached was an invitation. The Zilari government, now reformed and free of Varnak's influence, wanted to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. They requested Elena personally attend the ceremony. Standing aboard a new human vessel, the Harmony, named in honor of interspecies unity, Elena gazed out at the stars. Beside her were familiar faces, Marcus, Priya, and even some of the next generation of explorers. Among them was a young woman who bore a striking resemblance to Cal, her glowing skin a testament to his enduring legacy. As the Harmony approached Zilar Prime, its lush forests and shimmering oceans came into view, a stark contrast to the barren moon where it all began. Nira greeted them warmly, her eyes glistening with tears. "You came back," she said simply. "We promised we would," Belina replied, smiling. In that moment, surrounded by old friends and new allies, humanity realized how far they'd come. What started as a desperate rescue mission had blossomed into a partnership that transcended worlds. Together, humans and Zilari looked toward a brighter future, one built on trust, compassion, and the unshakable belief that no one should be left behind. And so, the story of the alien family who found hope in humanity became legend, not just on Earth, but across the stars.